So now, the challenge to adapting this view, if you will, that there are only small problems, is it all of a sudden feels like life is not epic enough. Um, and it's kind of interesting because like we want to be able to solve big problems because we want to be capable, and we want to be a hero, and if life only has small problems, then right? And so what I found is that like there's a lot of resistance to actually being able to recognize that life has only small problems because we want to be able to have meaning in life. And the way a lot of people actually find meaning in life is actually through growth. And oftentimes the way people experience growth is through like overcoming a lot of pain and challenges. Um, and it's really interesting because once you get on this path, you realize this is actually how all the people who ever accomplished anything in life actually did it. This is kind of like the secret, if you will, to how people who've left, a name for themselves, or people who become famous, or people who have done things that are epic. This is actually how they accomplished it through effortless power. That's how they were able to accomplish giant feats, enormous feats, because what they did was they just took, one step at a time, one thing at a time, and they just took the next step that they could. And actually, what I like to say is, taking the next step is gonna be challenging enough. And it's like I made it sound easy because to a certain extent that's what you need to look for. You need to look for something that's easy, but there'll be a lot of times where even if you look at the smallest step that you need to take sometimes that you can't break down any further will seem still like an effort, and it will still be difficult, and you'll be like, oh my gosh. And in this case, what I tell people is, okay, what would make that effortless? And like, say for instance, like, would it help for you to listen to music, or would it help for you to have someone actually do it together with, where even if they don't need to do anything, just have someone just be there talking with you, to talk with. It's really interesting because um, even the small steps can be challenging, and sometimes, and people that use this, they're like, oh my gosh, this really works. Where they just call someone and have them on the phone while they're doing it, or have them just sit next to them while they're doing something else, and you get it done. And so those are like small steps, and this is a concept. And I like to say that even if you make this small, life is going to be challenging enough. And it's called effortless power because you seek effortless power, and because of that, you start seeing better and better ways to actually be able to take the next step in the smallest chunk possible. And here's actually the thing that makes it really epic for me, at least, is that the smaller the chunk, the faster you get it done. And so you really find out that ease is power, because if there's this big and you try and eat it all at once, then you can't. So you waste a lot of time trying to eat something you can't. But if you just take small spoonfuls, just really small, not even big ones, small spoonfuls, then it's easy to eat. Okay. But if you try and big spoonfuls, you have to chew a lot, you have to take big gulps, and it's like a lot of effort. And then you get tired and you get full. If you take small bits, actually you're eating, and you're kind of like, you don't even know you're getting full actually in some ways, and you're digesting it probably as you're eating it, and it's effortless. And then actually when you're full, you can also take a break because you weren't putting so much effort in that you want to be just done with it. Because if you put in a lot of effort, there's a lot of pain involved, so you just want to be done with it. And actually, as a matter of fact, that's actually why people actually give up, because it was so painful and they want to be done with it, so they really press on, and then there's still some left and they just don't want to come back to it. That's why people actually make these goals in the very beginning of the year, to exercise every day, and they start with like exercising an hour, and few people survive through that. And this is the reason why. And so the secret to doing epic things, ironically, is by doing small things. And so I'd like to say, I'd like to like check it out for yourself. Look at anyone that you respect, and what you'll notice is that they have this. Now, sometimes once in a while, you'll see people who seem to have this insane amount of focus and willpower, and actually, to a certain extent, they do. I'm not gonna say they don't, because everyone has different, levels of attention span. But it's really interesting. If you look at their habit, they'll notice that in order to stay focused, they just look at one thing, they stay focused on that, and then they move on to the next. And because of that, it moves seamlessly. And because of that, it seems like they have this one giant long attention. But in reality, actually, what they're doing is that actually taking small steps all the way so their attention doesn't break. And so now some people have a longer endurance. Actually, the range can anywhere be between 15 minutes, 25 minutes to anywhere between 2-3 hours. And that really depends on the kind of work and the kind of brain that you have. And so don't look at someone else. You need to find out what your attention is. Like in my case, it's about 20 to 25 minutes, but actually it really depends. If I'm practicing something physical, it can be like 2-3 hours. And so depending on the task, it really changes. Like for instance, if I'm reading, I'll typically read. Actually, it's rather short, like between 5 and 10, the most, if it's really enjoyable, like 15-minute increments. And then I'll feel like my brain heating up, and I'll take a quick break, I'll do a little qigong, and then I'll go back. Now, as I've been meditating, that time has been increasing. But I'm aware that actually naturally, I like to take break often as I do things. So understanding that it's just spacing that out is really important. And so just if your attention for something lasts only 5 minutes, don't worry. That's actually how I started with meditation. Meditation in the very beginning was so painful that 5 minutes was all I could afford. And I've also come across people where they had to start with just 1 or 2 minutes. And so the key thing is that you start with small things. So in this video, what I really wanted to cover was, okay, so now we covered this concept that really, in the first video, that there are no such thing as big problems. They're actually just small problems put together. The second concept that covered this concept of effortless power. And really, the reason you do these small things is because the smaller something becomes, the easier it becomes. And in this video, I kind of covered why it's so challenging to adapt this really smart thing that anyone can see is the most effective thing in the world, to be able to accomplish anything, to increase productivity level, and so on and so forth. And the reason is because we want to have meaning in life, because we want to be capable, because we want to be heroes. And that's a really high need, to have impact upon the world, to be significant. And that's not just ego. Don't say, oh, I shouldn't have this big ego. Because wanting to have impact in life has to do with generosity, has to do with service, significance has to do with meaning as in you want to have a positive impact in the world. That's not a bad thing. We just need to adjust our expectation and realize that the way we achieve great things is by doing small things, which is not apparent. We think that in order to be able to do big things, we need to be able to do big things. It's counterintuitive that actually in order to do big things, we need to be able to do small things.